Hello and welcome to episode 283 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast in all of the internet. My name is Jordan Willis.
My name is Patrick Nisley.
My name is David Howe, and boy, oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest joining us once again for the first time in so long. Welcome to the show, the wonderful Vanessa Fernandez, ladies and gentlemen. How are you, Vanessa?
I'm doing well. Tested negative on that COVID test this morning, but still.
We love a negative test.
Warm beverage.
Well, Vanessa, thanks again for joining us. We are going to be talking all today about what's going on with Donkey Kong. What is Nintendo doing with Donkey Kong? It's been a lot of smoke, but no new game. Is there going to be a new game? We're going to talk all about it today. Before we get into that, of course, we're going to talk about the news. Sony's supposedly working on a handheld. I think we talked last week about Microsoft supposedly working on a handheld. They see the money. They want to get in on that. There is a alleged info on Switch 2 shipment size rumor. So just, add it to the pile. Donkey Kong Land is gotten dropped. And then about 30 minutes before we started recording, Donkey Kong Land 2 also dropped. So very timely on us, I guess. Anyway, great for us. But before we get into all of that, how's everyone doing today?
Pretty good. Yeah, I'm doing all right. I have not left my house today, if that's any indication, but I had a pretty nice weekend. I hung out with some friends over the weekend, and what else did I do? I saw some movies and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm having a pretty decent time. The reaction to last week's episode has been really nice. So thanks everybody for that.
Yeah, people love you, David. I actually wrote some things down of what I did so I could actually talk about it this week. So on Saturday, I went and saw Gummo in 4K. Movie I don't know if I ever needed to watch again or let alone see it in 4K, but I did it. So, as everyone else was watching Wicked or Gladiator 2, I was sitting in the AFS theater watching that. Weird movie. I don't know.
I also saw that once and was like, no, thank you.
I would totally see it again. But, I did see. I did Wicked this weekend. I did both Gladiator and Wicked, but I feel like I made the wrong choice right there.
I think you made the right choice. No, I do still think it's a movie worth watching. Also, reevaluating in the current climate, especially because that movie is about 30 years old, and just seeing how it deals with poverty and what type of things that breeds is just a very interesting examination of that. And I still think it's worth the watch, but it is hard to watch. So. Other than that, I've been just trying to get back into the swing of other creative projects, looking at more photos, editing the movie more, and just kind of getting back into the swing of that as these other gigs that I was working on kind of winded down. But yeah, it's basically what I've been up to. What about y'all?
I don't know if I have too much going on. It's Thanksgiving break now. Kids get an entire week off for Thanksgiving, which wasn't the case when I was a kid. But
yeah, what the fuck
is a thing now? So that the schools and work calendars just don't line up, and it's a nightmare. But anyway. So it feels like a little bit of a vacation. My day job at the nursery, things are slowing down a little bit, so I only have one day to work this week, I think, plus the holiday. I've been working a little bit on the game when I can, on Monochrome Heights, and then otherwise just kind of a lot of family time. Man, my kid is restricted from doing physical activity because of his appendicitis, or appendectomy, I guess. But he is got energy, so that is a problem that's over here because it's constantly we can't run or wrestle, and he's like, but I need to do something, and I'm like, I know.
Just keep pumping him full of Ambien, keep that kid asleep until he has recovered.
That's what's happening with me for the most part. Vanessa, how are you doing? What's going on in your life?
Doing well. I mean, aside from the scratchy throat, I think the last 6 months I've just really been in limbo with am I going to try to move to Japan or not? And a lot of things fell through, but still really enjoying the extra time I've gotten this year with family while we were all in the Midwest at the same time. Just obsessed with the Final Fantasy Rebirth that just consumed me. I knew it would. I did it anyway.
That's cool. I had a good time when we all went to that arcade in Chicago. That was a great time. It makes me really want to go back. Every time I hear about like new arcades in Chicago, I'm like, I'm one step closer to moving to Chicago.
Well, very nice. Then we can move along and we can talk about some shout outs for last week's episode. As already mentioned, I think last week's episode was about David's trip to Japan, talking about Japan. And we got some really great comments over on the YouTube. MazyRD said really, really enjoyed the Jupiter story. And our friend Matt Steve Irwin said, did you pitch Jupiter an F-Zero game where Captain Falcon gets out of his car to play Picross?
I did not. I actually responded to that comment saying, this is an all-time great comment. Also, fuck you. And YouTube censored my comment and deleted it. So wow. I am now saying it on the show right now for all to hear.
There you go. A couple of questions on our Discord for you, David. Cena says, tell us about your Domino's mishaps.
Oh, Lord. Okay, I'll try to make this quick. Basically, I ordered Domino's 3 times when I was in Japan. The first time and the second time were massive fails. The first time I didn't get my food at all. I like ordered delivery and it never showed up because I know they like go out on little scooters and like bring them to your house. And I was like, man, this will be great. But I just never got my order delivered and I was so sad. And then the second time I ordered it, I was like, well, surely that was a fluke. Second time I ordered it, same thing happened. Nothing showed up. Nobody contacted me. I was like, what is going on? So the second time I like hoofed it. I hoofed it like 15, 20 minutes to just like walk over to the Domino's, which is not that far, but it was like raining. And I asked them what was up and they were like, oh, well, your specific order, we didn't have it in stock. So we just canceled your order. We tried to contact you. And so I was like, oh, okay. I guess that's what probably happened the first time. So then I like had them order it again. But then it was kind of like wrong. But at that point, I was like, I just want to go home and eat Domino's. Third time, I didn't even fuck with delivery. I was like, this is not going to happen. Also, it was like the day that Trump won the election. And I was like, I just need to like walk this out and go eat a whole Domino's pizza. So like I did. I walked to the Domino's. I ordered a shrimp and mayo pizza, which is something that they have in Japan. Sounds disgusting. And it kind of was. But I ate my feelings and it was not a bad time. Although I was a little disappointed, I have to say, in Domino's. I give it a 4 out of 10.
Also on our Discord, Chewy PG, who's our resident Japan resident. I said that weird.
Yeah, that's true.
On our Discord, said, that was a great episode. I never thought to describe it in izakaya as tapas, but that's pretty spot on. And they also asked, did you end up going into Denny's?
I did go to a Denny's. Denny's was great. I ate a hamburger patty with chopsticks.
Wow. Hello, Chewy.
A couple more quick shout outs. Carasetta said, been dreaming of going to Japan for most of my life and really enjoyed your play-by-play. And Shade also said they just were really enjoying the episode, and Summer's reaction to David suggesting he go through his trip chronologically pretty much mirrored his own, which is great. I think everybody loved it, David. You were a little nervous about it being long, but we all liked it. And I think I also, like Shade, didn't realize the scale of Tokyo until we had that conversation. And I looked it up and was like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you too want to be shouted out on an episode, then make sure you comment somewhere online, like the YouTube, or send us a message, or join the Discord and be part of the conversation there. We would always appreciate it if folks share our podcast online on a place like Reddit or somewhere where, with a friend. We also have a Patreon. If you want to financially support the podcast and become a patron over there, we would appreciate that. And then if we, obviously we have the audio version of this podcast for audio listeners, but we also have a video version over on YouTube, which you can check out with our faces and video content. If you just want to hit like and subscribe when you're over on the YouTube, that would help us out a lot too. And with that, we can get into the news and rumors for the week. First up, I think we've already talked about this last week, but there is an eShop sale and a Black Friday sale going on. I don't think there's a whole lot new to share here, but I just wanted to make sure everybody knows, because this is the week, right? The end of this week. But there's a lot of first party games you can get physically or digitally for a decent price.
Man, I never know like when Black Friday starts now, because there's like Amazon Prime deal days and there's Black Friday, and they're all just like, it's like the whole month of November.
It doesn't matter anymore. It's not Friday.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it's certainly not Friday.
It is everything around it. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Go check out those deals. There's some good ones out there on the eShop right now.
We got some news, like Jordan hinted at, about a potential Sony handheld. So this is Bloomberg that is reporting this. It is not official like the Xbox one was. That was an interview with Phil Spencer where he said they are working on a handheld, but it's a ways off. I think they even reached out to Sony and there was no comment back. But it sounds like, again, early stages of a handheld. I'm guessing they saw the success of the Portal and they see the success of the Switch and the Steam Deck, just like Xbox. And maybe, rather than selling these giant expensive consoles, this is a middle path. I don't know. What do y'all think? Do you think that this handheld stuff, because this seems kind of big, right? Like that every company.
Yeah, Bloomberg reported it. Yeah.
Is chasing a trend, or do you think this is like a legit trend that's worth chasing?
I think it's chasing a trend. It's giving chasing, especially when they released that anniversary PlayStation just now. It's like how many computers do you expect your target demographic to buy? Because that's how I'm starting to see it at this point. They're computers. I don't like that first, second gen magic. If I'm going to buy a console, the first through the 2000s, it did feel like you're buying a console. Now not the commitment, but like the horsepower you're buying computers. You're just buying computers. And
I think the main difference for me is like Nintendo Switch has Nintendo games that you can't play anywhere else, where it's like with Sony, you're going to have this console that you can play it at your house on your TV. Then you're going to have this console that you can take on the road with you and play, but it's going to be all the same like catalog of games. And for me, it's like the Switch is at that point a better value only because like you have Nintendo games that you can just do both. And I'm wondering if the Sony console will do both, if that's like the mode they're trying to go, but that's not the vibe I got from like the Portal. Maybe this like the Portal was a little bit more successful than they anticipated. And they're like, oh, maybe this is actually something people want. And they're trying to like do something in that direction to kind of give folks the option and maybe have like a slightly like downgraded power wise from a PS5 like handheld, but still like, in that price point. But I don't know. I don't really see myself getting one. Like, I think the Steam Deck is still like the answer only because like I have that catalog already completely built out versus like starting from scratch with the Sony one just doesn't appeal to me. I don't know how many of these they would actually sell.
I am jazzed about this. I agree with you, Jordan, that this is probably them being like, oh shit, more people bought the Portal than we expected. And that shows that there is a market for handheld Sony, right? And not only that, they just updated the Portal to be able to stream games from PlayStation Now or PlayStation Plus streaming, whatever they call it now. I kind of forget. But so the Portal has, where before it was just like, it's just a remote screen for your PS5. It now has, you can now use a Portal without having a PS5 at all, which is pretty cool, right? And so it definitely seems like they're trending in this direction. And I don't think it's a gimmick either. I mean, or what would we say? Chasing a trend.
What's the Portal screen size comparable to? I haven't seen it. I'm not.
It's 8 inches. 8 inches of Sony right there on the Portal screen, which is nice, but it's not portable. Like I wouldn't want the device to be shaped like that if I were to get one. But it's like, I definitely think that this will happen. I think that what the reports have said is that this is probably multiple years away. I believe that, especially if they're trying to have PS5 level games being playable on this thing. The tech isn't really there yet, where it's not just going to drain the battery completely, but maybe like 3 years down the line, whenever like the Switch 2 is already pretty old, the next Steam Deck is about to come out, stuff like that. That's when I can see this coming out. And then also, man, you bet your fucking bottom dollar that we're going to see Sony games pulled from Steam pretty soon if they actually do this. Because,
for sure.
I mean, we've been speculating that for a while. Whenever they made people have to do their PSN logins in order to play Helldivers 2, it's like the writing was kind of on the wall for like a Sony launcher on PCs, right? And so if that's the case, I see all those purchases that you make through a Sony launcher or on PlayStation all kind of being cross-compatible with this next device. But either way, I'm here for it, man. This is just an age-old story that Nintendo does something new to like innovate and does something that everybody wants to copy. And now we're seeing Microsoft want to make a hybrid handheld. We're seeing Sony want to return to the handheld console wars. I'm all for it. I love handhelds. So even if it's not going to be as good of a deal as just like having a Steam Deck, you know what I mean? Which is, a Switch and Steam Deck are the best 1-2 punch that you can have right now. I would definitely get one just so I could fund both sides of this conflict.
Well, moving along to some movie news. We got some video game movie news this week, some new trailers, and kind of a behind the scenes trailer, if you will, for the Minecraft movie. We'll start with that one, or a Minecraft movie, I should say, which they actually even address in this in this thing. Which I'll be honest, this behind the scenes Minecraft movie thing actually made me like it more. I think there's a lot of practical effects they showed off, which is pretty cool. And I don't know, just kind of hearing about how they are taking it seriously. I mean, there's some big Minecraft streamers that they have involved, and I know y'all probably don't follow that, but my kid does, and so I'm aware of these people. They like the people they've brought on are like really big Minecraft community people that that just shows they're really trying to work with. I mean, so
one of the characters in the movie is a modder, I think.
Yeah, they said that.
Yeah, it's like I think the game in like the place that they go to in the movie is the game Minecraft from the real world of the movie, right? So it's like a Jumanji situation, which it already was because Jack Black is basically playing the same character that he does in Jumanji. But so it definitely makes it look better than it did originally. I'm still very cautiously approaching this Minecraft movie, but I've gone from I'm not gonna fucking see that, it looks like shit, to okay, you've piqued my interest, I'll go see this when it comes out. So it won me over.
Yeah, I think what was interesting too is like it almost felt like a response to the first trailer of how like everything looks fake and like on a big screen, and then this like behind the scenes trailer just shows their warehouse full of the Minecraft sets that they built that are like made out of blocks, and I'm like, yeah, but why does it still like look like a CGI screen then when you film it? I don't really know the answer to that, but it was really cool to see the production design. For me, I was just like, this is wild, because they actually built everything like based out of blocks. And like, I don't know exactly who was talking, but it sounded like either the production designer or someone, and he was just talking about, yeah, everything has to be blocks. So block fruit, block trees. And they showed like all the pieces that they were making physically for the movie. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And I'm with David. I was like, I did not give a shit. And now I'm like, I might go see it. Yeah, I'm kind of like, my interest is peaked just for the like production aspect.
So like, sorry, I didn't see the trailer either, but so is it kind of like the Lego movies walk so Minecraft can run? Because
it feels a little bit like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I thought the Lego movies were beautiful. Like I remember when I saw them, I was like, I've never seen anything like this before. And I can see like Minecraft being incredible with those like tools and stuff.
Yeah, it feels a little bit more like isekai than the Lego movie was. I feel like the Lego movie, like at the end, was like, and it's all in the real world. But this is like very much like it's taking place in both the real world and the Minecraft world. So it's almost more like Sonic the Hedgehog than which we'll talk about than Lego. But it definitely reminded me of Lego with all the like, Scandinavian people talking throughout the behind the scenes trailer.
Well, yeah, maybe we can talk then a little about the other video game movie trailer that came out, which is the Sonic 3 one. Now, I have to admit that I have actually not seen this new Sonic 3 trailer. So has anybody else paid attention to this?
Yeah, I watched it right before we recorded, and this also looks a lot better than the previous trailer. Got me pretty excited for it, to be honest.
It's Keanu. Really, it's Keanu. It's in there.
Yeah. They drop a Detective Pikachu and Pokemon reference at the beginning of the trailer, which is really odd. And that just kind of made me realize like how fast they've put out all these Sonic movies. Like they put out 3 movies in the span of like 5 years, which is pretty nuts. Like just shows Sega, like Sega's entire process on Sonic is just put out as much Sonic shit as they possibly can. And they're still doing it. And fortunately the movies haven't been awful. So that's good.
Well, I'll have to check that one out, but we can move along to some somewhat disturbing news around Pokemon Go that I'll admit that I also haven't dug into a ton. So I know, Jordan, you know a little bit about this because we were kind of talking about this the other day. But my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it turns out that Niantic, the company behind Pokemon Go, has been taking data about how people walk and that sort of thing and is using an AI.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, they changed the terms of service. This is kind of what I loosely have pieced together. Is like 5 years ago, they changed the terms of service to include like data tracking that is not just like your walking capability, like, or your walking data, but there's also like, if they didn't know, this is the part that really freaked me out, is like, if they didn't know about a building, they would put a event there and have you scan the building essentially. And then eventually they would be able to like build a model of what the building looks like from the exterior and sometimes the interior. So like basically having people do the work, like you are the product. I think when we talked about this briefly, like, yeah. So it's just a very strange thing that like seems like an obvious, like, yeah, no duh, they're like doing this. Like what else would they be doing whenever you're, walking to different parks to catch Pokemon? But it seems like really scummy. And I'm not exactly sure how this came out. That's like the other part that's like the big gap for me. But just the fact that it is happening just seems like very strange that they weren't like as upfront about it as they should have been.
Like, this reminds me how, when you think about it, didn't Pokemon kind of buy data already from Niantic? Because Pokemon Go was built off of Ingress data.
That's right. Yeah, off of their whole model that they had already built for that game. Yeah. So
Ingress players already filled out like the framework for Pokemon Go to come in and have Nintendo profit off of that. And now this is just another evolution of that. But the repercussions are way more serious because this is just human space now, not like fantasy capture the flag stuff or whatever.
Yeah, I think I would. It makes sense that they've done this, like
not surprised. I'm
not surprised at all by this. You know, like I kind of just assumed that everybody already knew this, I guess, just because of the world we live in and the way that data brokers like sell information and stuff like that, and just the nature of the internet. But I am curious what they will be using this data for. I think if it does leave Niantic and does leave Pokemon Company and then gets into the hands of Nintendo, like is this carte blanche? Can like anybody use this data? Like who is on the buyer list for this giant repertoire of information that they now have on their hands? And I think where it feels a little more scummy to me is like, I feel like with Ingress, like that game was like very cyberpunk. It was very like only really played by like weird adults, where like Pokemon Go is like a kid's game, adults play it, but it's just like, you don't want to just be like tracking the location of kids and see what they see.
That's so insidious. It's weird. I'm not with that.
But I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to follow this when we learn more about it, I suppose.
Well, moving us along then to Nintendo Music, the new NSO only app for cell phones, continues to just have this ridiculously slow drip feed of music coming out. The most recent one they just announced is Brain Age. It's just random shit on random days and not any substantial size. And I know, David, you haven't really had a chance to comment on Nintendo Music yet, so maybe we can use this as an opportunity for that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wasn't champing at the bit for the Brain Age soundtrack to listen to on my daily walks. But now if they added Picross music, that'd be a different story. You know what they really need to add is Famicom Detective Club soundtracks, because those are fucking bops. I would listen to those all the time. But anyway, Overall, I get why people don't like this app. Like I think that it definitely needs to credit the musicians and like the actual composers for these. Like they don't name them ever, and the drip feed is ridiculously slow. I wish they dropped 2 things a week. I'd be happy with 2 things a week, although I think they should probably do more. But 1 a week is very slow. At least it's once a week and not like once randomly, like all the other NSO systems. We'll talk about that later. But overall, I do like this app. I think it's cool that you can extend the music and loop it. And have like 15-minute, 30-minute, hour-long loops of songs. I've actually found that to be really cool. And I love listening to music as I fall asleep. And I've already made multiple sleep playlists from the Nintendo Music app. And video game, like ambient video game music is really great to sleep to. So I've been enjoying it for that reason.
Move us along then to this Switch 2 rumor, I think we can call it, about the initial shipment size for whenever this is gonna happen. Well, over on Famiboards, somebody claims to have some information about the launch shipment for the game, about the numbers of consoles that will be available at launch. And it sounds like, according to this person, whether or not this is true, we don't know, but it will be about 2.5 times the amount that the original Switch had, which would mean somewhere in the range of 6.5 to 7 million consoles for its first launch period of about 4 weeks. So that would be a pretty big launch if this is true.
Yeah.
That would mean that they are really anticipating this thing to sell. And also probably just trying to not have the problems they've had in the past of not like with the Switch launch where it was not, there was demand exceeding supply, but that's a lot, right?
7 million units is half of what the Wii U sold in its entire lifetime. So if that's true, and that's day one, they have that many available, and they're all sitting in a corner in a warehouse somewhere in Vietnam or Kyoto right now, then that's pretty exciting. And I think that shows a lot of confidence that Nintendo has in this product to not be a big flop, right? So obviously this is all rumor and this is insider jargon and everything like that, but I believe it. I mean, I think now is the time that shipping details and leaks like this are going to be coming out, because I do think Nintendo is sitting on a large cache of these devices, just waiting for the right time to get them out there.
And it's not, so they're not going for Christmas money?
I think they're trying to, if they announce it now and if they get Switch 2 out now, that kind of cannibalizes the kind of last leg of Switch sales that they could get before a price drop.
Okay.
So I think that they're trying to we've got these games that we know are coming out for the Switch early next year, and we've got games for the end of this year. Maybe a new Donkey Kong is going to drop randomly here very soon. We'll talk about that. But I think that they're not announcing anything because they really just want to push Switch over the edge and then kind of trickle in that last little bit to get it to be the most selling console of all time once they do a price drop when the Switch releases. But that's just my theory.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to move us on to the next thing, which is sort of a non-news thing, but this gives Jordan maybe a chance to talk here. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, as it is called, is now officially on the Nintendo Metroid website. So that's, of course, a new addition there, and that's leading people to speculate that maybe that's, maybe we're going to hear more about it soon. What do you think, Jordan? Do you think does this mean anything, or is it just a random, they finally got around to updating the website?
Great. Where's the Metroid section at the Nintendo store? Because that's all I give a shit about. No, it's cool. It's cool. I mean, it just feels like, oh yeah, it's imminent. Oh yeah, we need to put this on the website. We need to update the website by the end of the year because it's still coming in 2025. I don't really think it really means much beyond that, just other than, yep, let's keep it all up to date. It doesn't really feel like anything big to me.
They've reiterated that it is 2025 at least. And it is nice to just have that motherfucker have a release date because for so long we knew nothing. So I'm still basking in that right now.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out if there is more on that soon or not. But I'm going to move us along to talking about another Nintendo space property, which is Star Fox. And that is that there is a community or a group of people who've been working on a native PC port for Star Fox 64. And that has just kind of been been worked on for a while, but is just now kind of being talked about and shown off. And they had like a Star Fox streamer play it on stream and kind of show it off and that sort of thing.
I want to be a Star Fox streamer.
Yeah, I was reading about this guy and they were like, well,
sounds like a great job.
He's like, I had nothing to do with making this, but they came to me because I'm really good at playing Star Fox.
Okay. That's my new dream job.
But have you looked into this at all, David? Do you know much about it?
I did. I watched a little bit of this stream, and I've watched a little bit of the this PC port. You know, it's using the same kind of decompilation tech that they've been doing for Ship of Harkinian, which is the native PC port of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. There's also one for Majora's Mask. Super Mario 64 obviously has a native PC port as well. We're seeing this with a ton of N64 games, and I'm just really glad to see this too. You know, it's got lots of like cool beta options, and it's got fully unlocked 60 frames per second, widescreen, however wide you need it, and all that kind of stuff. So I love seeing these, and this is just more reason that Nintendo should put a little bit more work into some of their re-releases instead of just putting out ROMs, because this makes me never want to play Star Fox on my Switch ever again. I'd much rather load this up onto my Steam Deck and have it play in really great quality.
Fair enough. We got a couple of anniversaries here. First up is the Sega Saturn. Just had its 30th anniversary. Now, the Sega Saturn was not a super successful console, especially not here in the States. But looking back at it a lot, it has a little bit more of a cult following, maybe is the words I'm looking for.
It has Nights into Dreams.
Magic Knight Ray Earth. I think Sakura Wars. I think some
Sakura
JRPG
Wars.
Classics are on it. Yeah.
You've got Cotton, right? There's like a Cotton game on there, I believe.
I know that at least in Japan there were a lot more releases, but it was a sort of a short-lived console. But
No, actually, you know, I've got the one game that every Sega Saturn owner needs, and that's Myst for the Sega Saturn right here. So it goes along well with my Japanese copy of Riven for the original PlayStation that I also have back there. But it is my goal to own every obscure release of the Myst franchise for its strange consoles. Myst for the DS is up next that I will be grabbing. But yeah, I never had a Sega Saturn. That was one that totally passed me by. I was jealous of all my friends that had them. I think it's one of the coolest looking systems out there. I love the controller for it and everything. But yeah, it was just destined to fail. You know, PlayStation completely undercut it. And I made up for it by being a huge Dreamcast fan whenever that came out. Made up for lost time, but it wasn't fast enough because that thing also failed.
Another thing that just had its 30th anniversary that ties into our topic today is Donkey Kong Country. The original Donkey Kong Country came out in 1994. November 20th, I think. I actually don't have the date right in front of me, but it was this past week, within the last week or so. 30 years ago, you could have gotten a Saturn or Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
What a choice.
The majority of people chose the former rather than the latter. But yeah, man, I mean, this is one of those things, like, I don't feel old when I hear these anniversaries often. This one did make me feel old, you know, because like you see a lot of stuff and you're like, oh, it's like the 35th anniversary of Mario. And you're like, okay, that makes sense because Mario's old as fuck. But like Donkey Kong Country, when it came out, looked so new and like futuristic, and like the graphics were incredible, and it used Silicon graphics cards and all this kind of stuff. And it was like, wow, that was 30 years ago. Like, we're dust, man. You know, like that one is kind of getting me, but definitely does seem to be one of the main reasons that Nintendo is pushing Donkey Kong Country so hard right now.
Yeah, just for the record, Donkey Kong Country sold 9.3 million copies, the third best-selling SNES game. This is really strange, but the Sega Saturn sold a range of 9.5 million units to as high as 17 million units. So that's a really big range, but let's just say...
That seems a little inflated to me.
I think so as well. That seems a little fake. Let's just say it's closer to that 9.5 million. So as many people bought the Sega Saturn as bought Donkey Kong Country.
I guess you're right. Thank you for putting me in my place.
Well, like David just kind of hinted at there, Nintendo has dropped some Donkey Kong Country content on NSO, and that is Donkey Kong Land for the Game Boy, which is the sort of Game Boy port like of Donkey Kong Country. David,
Donkey Kong
you
Land
explained this a little bit in one of our recent episodes, or
yeah, Donkey Kong Land is a wholly original game for the most part. It has completely original levels. It has I think original music. Maybe it reuses some of the music, but it is pretty much its own game completely. Yeah.
I got that wrong. I don't know why the Donkey Kong Land games completely. I didn't even know they existed until we had that episode. I feel like or just not something I was familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, it's them obviously just going from Super Mario World to Super Mario Land and Donkey Kong Country to Donkey Kong Land. It was kind of like the nomenclature that they went with at the time. But yeah, it's a really cool game. It hasn't aged super well because, the tech was just not really quite there whenever we were doing that back in the day.
And then right before we started, they announced that Donkey Kong Land 2 is coming to NSO. And this literally happened, like I think Jordan said, like right before we started. So I don't know if it was a simultaneous drop, so if it's already out or if it's coming out soon. But either way, I assume this is also
it's
original.
It's out now.
Okay.
Yeah, you can play it right now.
And this is sort of the same thing, like an original version or sort of based off of Donkey Kong 2.
Kind of. Donkey Kong Land 2 is much closer to Donkey Kong Country 2 than Donkey Kong Land is to the original Donkey Kong Country. That said, they are original levels. They just use a lot of the same like themes and basic same layouts and music as Donkey Kong Country 2 does. But they were really kind of trying to make it as close to the Super Nintendo version as possible. But it is still a unique experience and it's still very much worth playing, especially because the second one very much like has much better graphics. The characters are a lot smaller. The animations are better. It's a lot smoother. Everything kind of pops off the screen a little bit better. So overall, it's a much better game in the way it plays. But the first game is kind of looked back on more fondly because it's more unique and more of its own thing.
Got it. Well, those are both available now. And it's kind of weird that Nintendo is doing it this way, and I think that's going to lead us in to our main topic, which is there's been a lot of Donkey Kong content and interesting things happening, and Nintendo has been kind of parsing out a lot of Donkey Kong stuff. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back for our main segment, we're going to talk about what that means, what's going on with Donkey Kong, and some speculation about maybe what a new game might look like after this break. We are back, and this week we are talking about Donkey Kong. It is the 30th anniversary of Donkey Kong Country, and Nintendo has been doing a lot of stuff around Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Country, and we're going to kind of go over the evidence that there is something up with Donkey Kong and that something big is coming, and then kind of speculate about what that might be, and if there's a new Donkey Kong Country game, not just like a remake or something, what would that be? What would we like? What's sort of the rumor and that sort of thing? So I think we're going to start off, if I'm not mistaken, with just kind of a big list of what's going on over at Nintendo, right? Do you want to say something, David, first?
Yeah, maybe before that, I did want to bring up, Vanessa, the reason we brought you on this show. I know you're an avid fan of the franchise, but we had you on a previous show, and the question was posed, I think, from a listener on what fictional Nintendo world would you want to live in? And your answer, without skipping a beat, was Donkey Kong Country. I think you said on the show that you would want to live inside of Donkey Kong Country. Is that still the case?
Oh, absolutely. I'm about to fly to Japan over it. Like, I'm dead serious.
Absolutely.
Palm trees, bananas, vibes. Cranky Kong, Ghost.
I do want to be wherever Cranky Kong is. That is a good point.
Very nice. Well, yeah. So there's been just a lot of stuff going on with Donkey Kong, right? I think that maybe we can start with the rumor that's been around, because this rumor has been around for a while. I want to say at least a year, but maybe 2, right? That we've been hearing that there is a new Donkey Kong game in development, and it's been a little bit confusing. I mean, as some of these leaks and rumors are, where you get kind of conflicting information. I feel like we've heard that it was a Donkey Kong Country game, but it was being developed internally at like, Nintendo, not Retro.
Rare still have?
Yeah, no.
Has it? I don't know. Oh, I know. Retro's that Austin one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Retro is in Austin.
That's how. Yeah.
The rumor has never been that Retro is working on another Donkey Kong game. The rumor was with Retro that Retro was working on like a musical RPG before they got pulled off of that and put back on Metroid Prime 4, right? So I don't think that Retro has been working on this at all. I think from what I heard, it was one of the Nintendo EPDs that was making the new Donkey Kong game. And I think at first the rumor was that it was like a 3D game, but then it kind of morphed into, no, it's a 2D game and it's being made by the Super Mario Odyssey team. So that's fascinating. And you say it was 2 years ago that we heard this. I think it was longer than that, Patrick, because I might be wrong, but I seem to remember hearing this rumor around the time that like Metroid Dread and like the new WarioWare game were rumored as well. They're like, there's a new WarioWare game coming and a new 2D Metroid, and there's a Donkey Kong game being worked on. So this rumor has been going around for several years at this point. And people kind of just stopped talking about it because there's just nothing to talk about, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing you could say is, was this some sort of misfire on Donkey Kong Country Returns, which is another piece of evidence, maybe jumping ahead a little bit. But it didn't ever sound like it. It always seemed like this was something unusual with Donkey Kong, like that, whether it was just the development team or whether it was 3D, 2D, or whether it was, a Donkey Kong game that's not a country game or something. It always kind of felt like there was something different about it than that, at least to me.
Well, we know that it's not that, because it was actually revealed that Forever Entertainment is doing the Donkey Kong Country Returns remake. It's rare that we get to find out who's actually making these games before they come out, but I think that was leaked on their website or something like that.
So going back a little bit, then another thing is that Donkey Kong was featured pretty prominently in the Mario movie when that came out. And I don't know that I would have expected that, right? Like,
it was perfect. It was such a masterstroke. Like every minute, like we knew we were going to that part of the world.
You got to live in it, Vanessa.
It was the best part for me. Yeah,
I agree.
I mean,
yeah.
It cleared the rest of the movie for me. Like the whole thing was like great, but that was such a treat. They didn't have to do it either. They really didn't.
No.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I wouldn't have expected it, but it became a big part of it, right? And Donkey Kong kind of mirrored Mario, and they, like had their own little journey together as characters, which it just kind of implied that they're like, they want us to not forget about Donkey Kong, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yes. Yeah. And it wasn't just like the Donkey Kong from Donkey Kong. It wasn't like a giant monkey throwing barrels at Mario, which is what you would kind of expect in the Mario movie. It's like they went to Donkey Kong Country. Like they name dropped Donkey Kong Country as the place that they went to. And not only that, it kind of also insinuated that the Kongs run the Mario Kart Grand Prix, like, or at least like are the mechanics. Like Funky Kong is like maybe the main mechanic behind like the Mario Kart Grand Prix, which is pretty crazy. I don't know like how much we want to take that lore at face value, but it was definitely more of Donkey Kong Country, including like Dixie and Diddy and Kitty and all those guys. They were all in it.
Also, I mean, we got this Donkey Kong Country addition to the theme park as well. And, a lot of these theme parks come years in advance. Like, I think a great example I keep thinking of is the Avatar theme park at the Disney World parks came like a decade almost, or at least a good chunk before Avatar 2 was ever a glimpse into the theater. So they were like banking on making so many of these movies. They built an entire section of a theme park that they have since expanded. So like for me, the theme park, since it takes so long to build those things, like the fact that they're adding Donkey Kong as the second part of the Mario theme park, to me signals that they have like bigger plans in mind for this character than just like an appearance in a movie.
Oh,
you know what
totally. I mean, I think that part was always in the blueprint for US, Japan. I mean, Universal Studio Japan, but COVID backed everything up. And so it was forced to open under like less than stellar conditions for them to make their money on any part of the park, let alone continue working in addition. But that they went back and like followed through. I think the movie did that. I think the movie 1000% like helped manifest the rest of that coming together, because I think the motif of like the temple and all that came like right from the movie. Like, have you seen that video of like Miyamoto like walking around and stuff?
Totally.
Like that movie was gave like the extra push to follow through on the whole thing. Whether or not they have games in mind for it, I don't know. They should, but I think the scene from the movie was instrumental in any of that happening.
Yeah, or at least push them after they had initially made those plans, like you were saying. I think that is right on the money. Like that they had originally been like, okay, we're going to put this whole thing out as like one big package, and then, but then COVID hit, and they're like, well, we'll do what we can. And then the movie was a huge success. Everybody loved it. And that gave them like the confidence to go forward with it, because Donkey Kong was like fresh on the minds of all the kids. I will say, after having just been to Universal Studios Japan, sadly, I wasn't there when the Donkey Kong part was open, but it really does seem like they only focus on characters that are in the movie, pretty much. You know, like there was no Wario representation. There was no Waluigi representation there. There were no Koopaling representation. It was like, you know, Daisy had a wristband, but I think that was just so that there could be more than just one girl wristband, right? For people, for like kids or whatever. But it was like, really is, you know, and this is the Universal Park. The Mario movie was a Universal movie release. So it's all kind of in simpatico with each other, but it really does seem like they're pushing Donkey Kong more than they have really for the past like couple decades.
Yeah, I think it makes sense from a like it fits in the world if you're going to have a Mario theme park, but it doesn't always make sense to me from a like a what's the second biggest Nintendo franchise if we're going to have like a you know what I mean, another area in the park. It probably would be like Zelda or Splatoon or Animal Crossing or something, right?
Yeah, like we said last week, like in the Nintendo store, it's like those are the four big pillars: Animal Crossing, Splatoon, Mario, and Zelda. Donkey Kong isn't really part of that, but maybe it shows that they're kind of thinking of Donkey Kong like as Mario.
Yeah, like a sidestep or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we are getting Donkey Kong Country Returns HD in a couple months in January. So they are keeping a game tied into this, right? Like I think because there is momentum around it right now with the theme park direct with Miyamoto and with these sort of NSO drops. It seems like they are wanting us to remember Donkey Kong every month or something, or like, you know what I mean? And that game is obviously just a HD, you know, it's not a new game, but I don't know. I think it feels like it's kind of surprising to me in a way that that there isn't a new game right now, but I guess maybe this fills a gap. I don't know what if y'all have any thoughts on that, or
I think it fills the gap. It fills the gap of this is an easy thing we can just grab and slap, and then put the new game out on the new system. And then like I feel like maybe we were supposed to get a Donkey Kong Country new game by the end of the year if the Super Switch had been released, but this is like, well, this is what we can do just to keep it fresh and keep it in the people's minds.
Well, look, if it's true that they've got 7 million Switch 2s just sitting in a warehouse ready to go, they're going to need a steady fucking cadence of games coming out once a month whenever that thing drops. So I think that this new Donkey Kong game, this rumored Donkey Kong game, has been done for years. Dude,
yeah, it's a launch title for sure, along with that theme park. Yeah, no way. That's like not a launch.
Yeah, and if it's not launch, it'll be within that first year. You know what I mean? I think it's like I think a new, you know, I think the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess re-releases are going to be within that first little bit. I think that a new Mario game, if this is made by the Odyssey team. I imagine they finished this game, sat on it, and then moved on to the next 3D Mario game, and that's going to be a launch title. You know what I mean? Because we know Nintendo will just finish shit and sit on it, right? And so to me, I'm getting from Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, I'm getting the Pikmin 1 and 2 re-releases. I'm getting Metroid Prime Remastered to kind of like get us into getting a new game. Now, sadly, I don't think Metroid Prime Remastered sold as much as Nintendo wanted them to, but that's a different story. But, you know, maybe they're trying not to make the same mistake here. You know, they're like, yo, let's fucking boost it up in the public consciousness. So when this thing actually releases, we make a pretty easy buck and get Donkey Kong in the minds of people before we drop that new one.
Well, a couple more little bits of evidence. Obviously, adding Land, Donkey Kong Land and Donkey Kong Land 2 to NSO within the last couple of weeks is a big one. And then we have on here too the Donkey Kong Legos, right? Yeah, there are Lego sets. They had big success with Mario Lego sets, and they made Donkey Kong Lego sets before Mario Kart ones. And and now they're making the Mario Kart ones, but like that also feels like something that might have meant to tie in with something, and the timing just didn't work out. And they're like, whatever, you know,
just put it out. Yeah. We'll just say it's Mario.
Yeah, it fits close enough. Yeah. And then we've also got on here, Donkey Kong Country music is in the Nintendo Music app, and then they added more Donkey Kong Country music right away. Again, just kind of keeping that name in the news cycle.
It makes sense because like Donkey Kong Country is like known for its music. You know, it's kind of, I think, might even be the thing Donkey Kong Country is most famous for, to be honest, is like aquatic ambience and its soundtracks. And it's like, I feel like Donkey Kong Country has one of like the most famous soundtracks of all time, you know?
I'm going to say like that is first place. And then like right up next to it is, you forget it's pre-renders. The whole thing is pre-renders. And in the 90s, it was hard to really not make it look good, but like, convince someone you're looking at a 3D game. Like,
yeah.
You know, but Donkey Kong, you just didn't even care. You didn't even care that wasn't true 3D. You're just in it. So it's graphically in this really fascinating place where why is this working when everyone else using the same workflow for like their sprites isn't pulling this off? Like,
I mean, it had to stand toe to toe with the Sega Saturn, you know, so it had to look its best. But yeah, no, totally. I think obviously that's a huge thing as well. But yeah, I'd love for them to drop Donkey Kong Country 3 soundtrack as well. A lot of people shit on that soundtrack because it's not David Wise. It's it's kind of a different vibe. But I think that soundtrack would also be really good, especially with headphones on. It's a very bass heavy soundtrack, and I think that would work really, really well on that app. But yeah, the fact that they dropped both of those, the fact that they're drip feeding us Donkey Kong content across multiple NSO apps right now is what kind of world are we living in? And I do have to also ask, you know, I feel like even by the time this episode comes out, Donkey Kong Land 3 might be out on NSO. Do you think that they're leading towards Donkey Kong 94? Because it's crazy that game still is not out for the Game Boy, right?
That is possible. I mean, so what? It was like 4 days in between Land 1 and Land 2. So maybe by the end of the week, we'll have Land 3. And then I don't know, though. I kind of feel like they're not going to release Donkey Kong 94 on the NSO app.
Why?
I don't know. Something in my gut is
it's like
just
the best Game Boy game.
I know.
It was
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know. Something in my gut was like, whenever they released Donkey Kong versus Minis or whatever the fuck, Mario versus the Minis. And
Mario
then
versus Donkey Kong, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't put out Donkey Kong 94 in any time like right before it or any time right after it. That to me was the optimal time to put that game out because they're kind of like same or similar, you know? So something in my gut.
Maybe that's why they didn't. They thought that if people played the Game Boy game, they'd just be like, well, why would I buy the remake?
Yeah, but then they put out 3 fucking Mario RPGs in less than a year. So you know what I mean? Like, I don't... I just don't know.
RPGs are late stage console life cycle games. They know that gamers are going to be picking up stuff like that towards the end of a life cycle. Maybe that's not true, but that feels like that way. But you're right. Mario versus Donkey Kong. I totally forgot. That also came out like within the past year, so just more stuff on the mind there. There's also the biggest evidence, I think, that we shouldn't drop that something is happening with Donkey Kong is that David Wise, the composer of the Donkey Kong soundtracks, followed me on Blue Sky. So I think that is definitely worth talking about, at least.
Hi, if you're listening. Hello.
We know he's listening right now.
Man.
No, it was cool, though. Like David Wise and Grant Kirkhope were both at like some awards thing or some video game convention, and they were like playing stuff together. So yeah, maybe that means they're both working together on a new soundtrack for a new Donkey Kong game.
Okay, so I think we've laid out our evidence and as to why we think there's something bigger coming for Donkey Kong. We don't have to get into the debate about whether or not that's true or anything like that. So let's just assume that it is, right? So maybe we can just assume there's a new Donkey Kong game coming. What do y'all think, first of all, it will be? Either what do you want it to be or what do you think it will be based on these rumors and or based on, all this evidence we've been seeing? Do you think it's a true Donkey Kong Country game that fits into that franchise? Or do you think it's something that's Donkey Kong but outside of the country mold?
I thought this was such an interesting prompt because I thought the perfect Donkey Kong game or branding opportunity already happened, and it was Donkey Konga. I thought that was such a good move for the franchise, and it flopped. It really flopped. And I understand that a proprietary controller is suicide today. One, that's not going to happen. It wasn't a bad idea. And that was wild because you were just saying how the music is the strongest part. Mm-hmm. Yet a Donkey Kong music game and the aesthetics and everything, it was such a match, and it didn't. I felt like Donkey Kong went away for a while after that one, honestly. That probably hurt.
Yeah, that and King of Swing was a 1-2 punch that kind of sealed its fate for a little while. But I mean, I think that's all the reason why they should lean into country again. Even if it's not a straight up sequel to Tropical Freeze, I think keeping that branding, keeping that kind of style going, having it sort of continue to grow its own little universe. I like that. Would you play a new Donkey Konga? Are you a Taiko no Tatsujin fan?
Yes.
Okay.
I am known for having an obscene collection of the figures.
Okay.
I'm not good at it, but I like a rhythm game. They're just straight to the point. Dopamine hits, just hit the arrows and the colors and all that. So.
What about the two of you? Would you be satisfied if after all this time it was a Donkey Konga game?
I think.
Oh yeah, they would totally.
No, I would be pretty darn disappointed, to be honest with you.
No, I thought it was brilliant. I thought at the time it was a brilliant direction for it to go.
Look, live your truth. Live your truth, Vanessa. We're not going to stop you.
And also, Taiko dominated in the thoughts anyway. So maybe that was their attempt to get in on some of that.
No, I think that this conversation has actually made me more convinced it will be branded country than I was before we started talking, because of all the points you just made, and the point that you said, Vanessa, in the Mario movie, they really made a big point about calling it Donkey Kong Country, or whoever said that, if it wasn't you, and also that the park is called that, and that they've kind of kept the visuals of all those things consistent with the Donkey Kong Country games. That makes me think. And
wait, wasn't Miyamoto playing bongos in that little video?
He was.
We have a Congo section in the park.
Vanessa, you have to let this die. You have to let this die. No, that is true. I almost brought that up.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Sorry.
No, I mean, you're not wrong, Patrick. I mean, it definitely would make sense. It seems like they're really throwing that branding out quite a bit right now.
Yeah,
you know?
even if it was like Donkey Kong Country 3D or something, if it was a 3D game, you know what I mean? Even if they like wanted to do something wild like that, you know.
I don't think it's going to be 3D. And here's why. Hear me out. Okay. So Kirby Star Allies is a 2D Kirby game, but then Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a 3D Kirby game. They're not going to have another like 3D platformer thing. They're going to be Kirby is now going to be 3D moving forward, and Donkey Kong is going to be the new 2D secondary, not Mario platformer. Don't ask me to explain more than that, but that just makes sense in my head.
I'm going to disagree because I think Kirby is always going to be an easy kid 2D platformer, but
except for Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which was a easy kid 3D platformer.
Yeah, well, maybe you're right. Maybe they are going to make that the kiddie 3D platformer going forward. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Well, on the topic of Kirby, I could see them continuing both ways. You know what I mean? I don't think we've seen the end of easy kiddie 2D Kirby games, but there is a pretty good point to that though, Jordan, that like they kind of need a franchise that sort of is guaranteed to be 2D, I suppose. And I do, in my heart of hearts, like I think ultimately want the new Donkey Kong Country, if it is a Donkey Kong Country game, to be a 2D game, just because I think the 2D Donkey Kong Country games are like some of the best 2D platformers of all time. You know, like honestly, all 5 of them are like, I would rank in like the upper echelon of 2D platformers. You know, even the ones that are at their worst are still fucking incredible games. And I, you know, and it makes me a little nervous with it not being retro since they did such a good job. But man, like what team do I trust more at Nintendo than the Super Mario Odyssey team, you know? And there were definitely, you know, 2D sections in Mario Odyssey. And I'm sure that, you know, a lot of those guys started in 2D games before the move to 3D. So I think that would be fine. I will say though, I feel like Donkey Kong has only ever had one shot at 3D and they kind of fumbled it, you know, like Donkey Kong 64 is like not renowned. You know, like in fact, it's much maligned in history, you know, and I think people like really don't like that game very much. And I think that Donkey Kong could do a really great 3D platformer, and I think deserves a really great 3D platformer. So I would be happy either way, but I think I would probably ultimately be more excited to see Donkey Kong move in a 3D way. But if they did, I would love it for it to be a Donkey Kong Country 3D, like you were talking about, Patrick, instead of like them trying to do something completely different and then just keeping Donkey Kong Country its own franchise to the side. I think it would be cool to like evolve Donkey Kong Country and see what that would look like.
Okay, well, whether or not it's called Donkey Kong Country or not, but let's assume it's a 2D or 3D platform. It doesn't really matter. What do y'all want out of it in terms of like maybe theming or playable characters? Do we want to just kind of stick to the traditional Donkey Kong Country you know, characters and just maybe in a new sort of theme, or do you want something more wild?
Bongos.
Come on. Now I've lost you too. Come on, Jordan. Gone to the dark side.
Vanessa convinced me. I'm on board. I'm on board for the Donkey Konga revolution. The entire 3D game is controlled by bongos, and you have to use that to move. And it's
the only game you can play with the Donkey Konga bongos is Dark Souls, and that's the only one you're allowed to play.
It's going to be the new streamer game, Donkey Konga, Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Konga Country.
Oh my god!
Returns to HD plus. No, I mean, the one thing I do really like about Donkey Kong 64 is the fact that it did have so many playable characters was like really nice. And then like you use those different characters to get to different sections and different areas of the world, which I like that concept. And so if they were going to move into like a 3D game, I think that would be a really nice way to go about it. I don't want to see that in a 2D realm. I think Tropical Freeze kind of threaded the needle perfectly, where you do have different assist characters that have different assist abilities, but like nothing crazy, you know. So if you're going to do a 3D game, though, I'd want like different characters with different control schemes, which is a way that it could separate itself from Mario. Because Mario, you're usually, I mean, take it with a grain of salt, but like all the characters control vaguely the same, just very slight differences. Whereas like Donkey Kong, if you had all the different characters, you can have that as an opportunity to have like really different play styles within the same game.
I think that's fair. I think if it is 2D, I kind of do want just the traditional characters, but I also wouldn't mind maybe one new one or one old one coming back. I think
as long as it has funky mode, I'll be happy.
I think another question I want to pose to y'all is: do you think it should have Kremlins? If the whatever this is,
Kremlings. Kremlin is the Secret
Russian.
Service in Russia. Yeah.
Do you think it should have the Kremlin in it?
Yes.
Yeah, of course my answer is yes. I mean, I'm a huge fucking King K. Rool fan. I love the Kremlings. I think I'd be hard pressed to name a more iconic villain group than the Kremlings. Sadly, I think Nintendo wants nothing to do with the Kremlings. The Kremlings were nowhere to be seen at Donkey Kong Country Universal in that video, and I doubt we'll see them anywhere in there. They were not in Tropical Freeze. They were not in Returns. They were not in the movie. The only Kremling representation that we've seen is just K. Rool himself in Smash. That's been the only.
He's not like bad, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's good. And yeah, but it's like. I just feel like for some reason Nintendo is like, that's a rare thing. And they're making that the distinction between the rare games and their games. But oh my God, if they went back on that and changed their mind and brought the Kremlings back, literally nothing would make me happier.
Maybe it would just be too much competition with like the Koopa and Bowser branding.
Maybe.
Because they are bad. They are bad little scoundrels. They're mean. They're nasty.
That is so true. They are little rapscallions.
Versus Birdo. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, Birdo's a baddie, but like, whatever.
Would you say Birdo's a baddie? Is that what you said?
Birdo's a baddie.
Birdo's my wife. So
our wife.
Are we? I forgot we're in a poly relationship with Birdo. That's my bad. But yeah, I mean, I think I would kind of like to see maybe if they do 2D, something that they could bring to it is like a bit more of a focus on multiplayer. And, right now with Donkey Kong Returns and Tropical Freeze, like you could like if you're playing as Diddy, you can like jump off the back of Donkey Kong and like run around like together. But I think it'd be cool to see like a little bit of a wider angle, kind of like they did with New Super Mario Brothers, and maybe have up to 3 or 4 player co-op multiplayer. Try that out on this one. I feel like, especially in the way that the Donkey Kong Country games like play with the environment, that could be a really cool thing when you have multiple people playing. And the last game like had 4 or 5 playable characters, like imagine, Donkey, Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky all running around the stage at the same time. Especially when you're on the Switch 2, you don't have to worry about that slowing the game down or anything like that. I think that could actually be pretty cool. So I think that would be kind of nice to see. Maybe some online as well, if they are going that way, kind of modernize these games a little bit more. But I don't want them to stray too much, I think.
Well, then maybe we can kind of wind down the conversation with the question of when. I think Jordan, you already kind of said your thoughts on this, but maybe I'm mixing up people. If there is a new Donkey Kong game coming, do we think this is a immediate, or maybe that was you, David, but an immediate launch with Switch 2? Do you think this is a Switch and Switch 2 game that comes a little earlier, or when?
I do kind of have a theory of this. So like the launch game is going to be the new 3D Mario. And then much like Super Mario Odyssey was like the fall game to the Breath of the Wild, I feel like the Donkey Kong Country Returns Neo game will be like the fall title. Like if this Super Switch does launch in March, April, around that area, we're getting Odyssey 2 at the beginning, or whatever that 3D game will be. And then Donkey Kong Country returns by the end of the year.
Donkey Kong Country returns again. Yeah, the return of Kong. Yeah.
What you got, Vanessa?
I have a legitimate like concern question thing, but like, the name Diddy isn't like in a good place right now.
Yeah.
No, really.
Yeah.
No.
Well, he already
and
changed his name from Sean Puffy Kong. So
No, but like, what if this is a legitimate holdup somewhere in like
oh no.
Nintendo marketing office? Like, oh my God, this is happening right now, and we have like an innocent little like chimp we need to sell right now. And,
Right.
Like
That's true. Diddy was not seen at the Donkey Kong Country Universal video. I did not see Diddy anywhere there, or Diddy Kong. I thought Sean Puffy Combs' absence from that video was quite suspect. No, no, I mean that's kind of like I hadn't really seriously thought about that, but I don't know. Maybe that is a good point. Do you guys think that the name Diddy is tainted at this point?
I didn't make the connection till now, so I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that's not causing any holdups.
They'll just retcon his name. I don't. Daddy
No,
Kong?
Sean
No, I got
Puffy
nothing.
Kong. No,
Daddy Kong. That's a good idea. Age everybody up. Have this be like a gritty PlayStation 4 game. And it's Daddy Kong now. Now Donkey Kong is Cranky. Cranky is long dead. Dixie is I don't know. I'm done with that. But I did have if we can actually go back to things that a new game could potentially be. Something, and this might be heresy to say, so forgive me, but something that I quite enjoyed was the remake of Super Mario RPG. And that was a game that on the Super Nintendo also used pre-rendered graphics. It had that isometric style and had pre-rendered characters, also done with Silicon Graphics workstations when they made the graphics for that game. Very similar technology to Donkey Kong. In fact, Donkey Kong Country was the reason that they felt that they could use that technology in Super Mario RPG. The way that they did the remake of that was they kind of took the pre-rendered graphics and made them live rendered graphics, but maintained that style. And ever since then, I've just had in my craw like, what would a remake of the original Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo look like not pre-rendered anymore? Like, if they could do the graphic style from that game, how it looked back then, like, take, for instance, like the Riven remake that just came out, the sequel to Myst, like, that came out earlier this year. That was a pre-rendered game. That was all, like, still images. You play that game now, it's all real-time 3D, but it looks exactly like it did back in the day. Like they nailed the pre-rendered aesthetic back in real time. I bet they could do that now. I don't think that I want that over a new game, but I think it would be really cool to see, right?
A really serious college try at like a cell-shaded game. Yeah, I could see it working.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that like, so that SGI workstation core aesthetic, like, like the early, like the, what is it? There's called Render 96. Have you guys heard of that? It's like it's a mod for the PC port of Mario 64 that uses the renders that they made for like all the promotional stuff in Mario 64 before it came out. That's the playable Mario that you play in the game. And like Bowser looks like he did in all the promotional art. So it's like the technology's there. People are able to do it. And I think that if they just did that exact style, like warts and all, and like made it look retro, but all running in real time in widescreen in HD, I think that would be pretty special if they would be able to pull that off. If nothing else, I'd love to see like a fan game do that or something like that, but it'd just be a shit ton of work,
I think probably we should head towards closing out this conversation. So I just want to make sure that if anybody has any other Donkey Kong, evidence or speculation or hopes for this, we get that in.
Well, Your Honor, I'd like to bring up to the bench evidence B of. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't really have too much, I suppose. I do love this franchise so much. I think, when I was in Japan, like, a lot of people were asking me like, oh, what's your favorite anime series? Or like, what's your favorite video game? Like, why are you like in Japan? And like, And I think I realized while I was there, it's like, yeah, I love Zelda and I love Mario, but I think like my main Nintendo franchise that like has my entire heart is Donkey Kong Country. It's like that to me, like feels kind of the most nostalgic. That is the game that like got me most excited when I was a kid. I feel like I almost like I think I oftentimes think of Super Mario World as like the best game of all time. And I think it probably still is, but it's like, I like took that game for granted because I like played it since I was like 3 years old. You know what I mean? It was just kind of always around. Like I remember Donkey Kong like being about to come out like at a very young age, 30 years ago when I was like 6 or whatever, And so like I remember being excited for that like early. And then when Donkey Kong Country 2 and Donkey Kong Country 3, I like looked up shit about those games before they came out, like as like a small child, So it's like, this has been like, I think one of the franchises that I can remember for the longest that has always excited me as to what could happen next. And like, we've gone through so many weird droughts of Donkey Kong over the years, like Tropical Freeze came out how long ago now? Like 12 years ago, like for the Wii U, like, and it got re-released, but not with any new content or anything like that. We haven't had a new game in so long. And we keep going through these droughts. So I just really, really, really hope that there's something that can like reignite that like very young David excitement again going forward, because that's kind of, I get nostalgic for that kind of like hype. And I really hope to have that feeling again very soon and see something revealed sooner rather than later.
Well, if there's nothing else, then I think that's a great place for us to end. If y'all do,
that was lovely.
You got something, Vanessa?
Okay. More heresy, I guess. Because I'm like, hey, like a card game, a cart game, a puzzle game. I think the true. Franchise, it can be like a wild card. It doesn't have to be like a platform. It could be a chameleon to any kind of art style.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Maybe I just see it taking certain risks the same way Sonic did.
But I agree. Flood the market. Flood the market. Give me those $8 Kirby games that always come out. Those like little tiny things. Give me a bunch of those, but with Donkey Kong. I'm in for it.
All right. Well, then I think that's going to do it for our discussion on the what's going on with Donkey Kong over at Nintendo. If you have any thoughts about that or any other things you hope to see in another Donkey Kong game, then definitely let us know, and we'll try to shout you out next time. And with that, we'll take another short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the games we've been playing recently. The only game I've really been playing is Mario and Luigi Brothership. And I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. I still enjoy it quite a bit, even though I'm about to complain about it a little bit. I guess I just want to talk about the boss fights, because they're kind of a highlight of the game, but they're also kind of have been frustrating in some ways. And it's just been an interesting part of the game that I think the boss fights are really well designed, but they also tend to be a little bit of a difficulty spike. And I'm on a boss right now where I've died twice and kind of set the game down, and that's not a big deal, but it's felt like multiple times I've felt like I think I'm ready to go fight the boss, and then been like, I don't know if I'd need to grind more or if I just need to get good at blocking and defending the boss's attacks, and trying to find that. It's actually kind of cool, but trying to find the balance of like, should I go back and grind a few more enemies, or should I just fight this and lose it one more time to like really get my blocks down? I've been kind of, Jordan, I'd be open to hearing your thoughts on how you approach that. Like,
yeah, man, I think, dude, honestly, the battle plugs really save the day in that regard. Like, I haven't.
What did you say?
Battle plugs.
They're like little accessories that you can.
We all hear what we want to hear.
I suppose you're right.
Yeah. So I do a lot of like auto mushroom and like auto, like where I get the same items that I just used back, or they give me boosts if I use an item. I just kind of do that kind of thing. And so I haven't personally had like an issue. That being said, some of the mechanics within the boss fights are like so wildly different than the mechanics in the regular fights that it's like, whoa, hang on, let me like, I kind of messed it up a couple times in certain boss fights.
The one I'm on in particular has some attacks that I'm finding really hard to dodge, and I have a really hard time not just blocking, but like I have to dodge. Like I can't take the damage.
Yeah.
And so this one is like, anyway, I think I just need to give it another shot. And I think you're right. The battle plugs is a big part of it and being more thoughtful about that. But anyway, I'm still enjoying the game. And that's really all I have to say.
Yeah, I'll go next because I've been playing basically 2 games, Brothership being one. I'm probably about 24 hours in now. I'm fully all in, dude. I love this game. I think this game is fantastic. I don't think it's my favorite Mario and Luigi game, but I really like what it's doing. I really like the bite-size pieces of like every island you go to is maybe like a 30 to an hour depending adventure, and then you kind of like move on to the next. And I've gotten to a point where, you know, a lot of people are saying the islands are kind of like samey, but I feel like there are just different stories within the islands, and then also like different gameplay within the islands. Like I finally got to one that I was talking to Patrick about this, but it really reminded me of the Frog Detective games where there's like a mystery on the island. So you're not just fighting a bunch of enemies, you're walking around the island trying to uncover and solve a mystery actively. Like you're playing a detective role versus like a fighter role, which I thought was like really interesting for this type of game, which I hadn't really seen in a previous Mario and Luigi series. I'm sure I'll be corrected somewhere, but for me, that's like the first time I really remember that. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So I don't know. I'm like really getting into the game like a lot more than I was initially. So, but yeah, other than that, I've been playing. I forgot. So I got a new phone recently. It's my first new phone in like 5 or 6 years. I can't even remember. But I was like, oh yeah, Netflix has like free games you can just download. So I was like, okay, let's
good
like
ones too.
Dude, yeah. So I was like scrolling through, like, what would I actually play? So I've been playing this game called The Case of the Golden Idol. I got recommended this game by my friend Zane. Shout out Zane. He said, hey, you like Return to the Obra you should play this game. And I was like, oh, and so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll keep it on my back burner. And then when I was scrolling through, I saw it and I immediately downloaded it. I'm pretty far into it now. I'd say I'm almost done with the main story. But the game itself is kind of like Return to the Obra where you're trying to solve a mystery. And so you're given a scene with a bunch of little things you can click on. So it's like a point and click game. And then you'll get information. And then you're having to fill out a form that basically tells the story of what you've seen. But you can't tell it immediately. You have to read all the little pieces and put all the clues together to figure out exactly what happened in the scene. And then there's like individual scenes that then feed into a larger story. So I think I'm 9 scenes into the story. I don't know how many there are, but yeah, it's been a really fun game to play. It's really a good phone game because you can play it in pretty small chunks. If you do like one case, it's 15 to 30 minutes. But yeah, man, been really enjoying that. But other than that, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Thanks for the reminder. I've been meaning to play Immortality, the Sam Barlow game, which is also on Netflix. It's on phones. So
I downloaded that one as well.
Yeah, it's a massive game on phones. It's taking up a lot of space on my phone, so I have to actually play it. But I've been playing a few things. I did try out the Fitness Boxing 3 demo that is currently out. I played a lot of Fitness Boxing 2 when that came out, when I was trying to get swole. And then I dropped it because of depression. But I picked up Fitness Boxing 3, the demo, and I don't know that I'm going to actually buy this game because it feels very much like more of the same. I'm going to give it some more tries. I think you could just play the demo. I don't know what the limit on the demo is. I feel like you can do quite a bit in the demo, but I do need to get up and moving again. Like coming back from Japan, I'm like trying to like walk around a lot more and not just like revert and just be a couch potato again. I'm trying to like be more active, So yeah, I'll try to do that with Fitness Boxing 3. We'll see if I actually end up picking that game up. Maybe I will get the Hatsune Miku game instead. I have been playing a game that came out just the other day on Steam called Threshold. This is a very weird game. It is in a 2-pack right now with mouthwashing. That'll maybe give you a bit of an impression of what kind of game it is, but it is a very kind of dark narrative experience. It's in first person. It takes place in this world where there's like hardly any air on the surface, and there's a train that you have to keep consistently running at a regular pace. But in order to keep the train running, you have to blow a whistle but blowing the whistle means that you're losing oxygen. So then you have to like go and like use punch cards to get these like little glass vials that you bite into that makes your mouth bleed, that has oxygen inside it. And then it's like this weird cycle set in this like dystopian future. It's really hard to kind of describe exactly the feeling that you get from it, but it's kind of this existential dread and horror. I'm about halfway through it right now. It's not a long game. You could probably beat this in one sitting, but I had something to do that night. But I'm really enjoying this game. It's got a really cool aesthetic. And yeah, I think I'm going to play mouthwashing after that. I did pick up both of those games in the bundle. I did beat some UFO 50 games. I golded a couple cartridges in UFO 50. One of them I played with friend of the show, B-Bon, Brian Bonnet, who was sadly in the hospital recently recovering from a surgery. I went and visited him in the hospital while he was there over the weekend, and I brought my Steam Deck and monitor and 2 controllers, and we played Elphazar's Hat on UFO 50, which is a kind of Pocky and Rocky like. If you're a fan of the Pocky and Rocky games, it's very similar to that. We played through that until we beat it, and that was super fucking fun. I think it took us about 3 hours or something like that to do it all together, which is crazy that we were so committed to that, but that was a really fun thing to do in the hospital. Also, I did finally beat Mini and Max, the game that I was talking about last week. Mini and Max, just an all-time fucking classic. Like if this game had come out on the NES, like it would be in the top 10 NES game list of all time, so it's a really incredible game that really goes places by the end of the game. And I have not even, I was going to say I haven't scratched the surface, but there's still a lot more for me to do, even though I have rolled credits on that one. And then finally, I want to give a little shout out to a game that I actually just started playing today called Apotris. And it's basically a GBA ROM hack game, or it's a homebrew GBA game, but it's Tetris. It's like a Tetris game, but it is like the ultimate Tetris game. It is like basically first of all, it's on GBA, and GBA just has amazing like pixel art graphics. Like I just think GBA games look really nice, so it feels really good. But it's modern Tetris. It has the hard drop. It has the ghosting pieces. You can hold a piece while you're waiting. But then also it's got all these customization options. You can change everything about it. It's got like 12 different modes. And then not only that, this game now has like native ports for, I think, Switch, PC, Mac, Linux, all this different kind of stuff. So there are all these different ways to play Apotris right now. But if you're a Tetris fan and you've just been looking for like the ultimate version of Tetris to just play whenever you want, this is definitely the one to grab. I've been really enjoying that. And I played it maybe a little bit more during work today than I should have. What about you, Vanessa? Have you been playing anything cool recently?
Well, I have been in a Final Fantasy VII remake K-hole for the last couple months with the Ever Crisis lore coming out and all that. But Monster Hunter Sunbreak, and I missed the Wild beta, but I have like this new computer, and I'm so nervous because it's like, fuck, I want to run a benchmark. I don't know if I'm going to be able to play Wild when it comes out. I'm so nervous. I really want to play Wild when it comes out.
Just play it at 560p. It'll be fine.
Why did I buy a computer? Why did I do that? But yeah, like Monster Hunter. I'm just looking forward to that.
Very cool.
Very nice. Well, I think then that's it for this episode on Donkey Kong and speculation about the future for Donkey Kong. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for coming on and joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and thanks to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. Thanks to all of our patrons over on Patreon. If you're looking for me, Patrick, you can find me online as PDYX.
You can find me online at Boardan.
I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Vanessa? Can people find you online?
Twitter, Vanasty, Vanasty.
Very good. Go look her up on there. Are you going to make the Blue Sky jump anytime soon, or are you staying over there on the Hell site?
I thought Blue Sky was it's not a Hell site too?
No, Blue Sky rules.
Really? Okay, I saw one thing from it. I'm like, I don't know about Maybe I will go check.
Hell yeah. You can own the libs over there. If you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Twitter and Blue Sky. We are at Super Switch Headz on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We have a website at switchheadz.com, and we have a Facebook group, a Discord, and a Patreon. Please check out all three of those. We'd love to have your support financially if you enjoy this show over at our Patreon. You get some special Discord channels that you can join, and if you're not into that, just join our Discord generally. We got one of the best communities on the entire internet, a non-toxic group of lovely people, and we'd love to have you be part of the conversation. So please join us over there. Check us out on YouTube. We're doing shorts now. We've got a clips channel as well. We'll be hard launching that next year, but you can find us on there. And please like and subscribe on the YouTube. Tell all your friends about the show. We really appreciate that so much. That's going to do it for this episode on Donkey Kong Country and the future therein. Oh boy, I really hope it fucking happens. We'll be back next week with another banger of an episode. So don't touch that dial. But until then, you guys know the drill. Stay safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Live your life in funky mode. We love you very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.